Hey guys, welcome to part two. Um, Again, it's December 19th, now 10:11. So coming back to you with another episode of Nightmare Podcast. Finally here to do the Sami Zayn podcast that I wanted to do. That obviously didn't happen. And I wanted to get it done before he came to SmackDown, but he didn't appear the way I thought he was going to, so I guess there's really no harm, no foul. So what I wanted to discuss, just talk about, was obviously just how great Sami Zayn has been during this whole Bloodline run. And, excuse me, and to me, this is going to be coming to an end pretty soon. Because I am convinced that the match is going to be Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens versus the Usos for the tag team titles. And I believe they will be the ones to dethrone them. But I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because if you live in New York, you know of a radio station called WFAN. And one of the hosts on WFAN, his name is, oh my God, Evan Roberts. I knew his last name, like his first name was drawing a blank on me. And he is a huge wrestling fan. So after every wrestling of, I should say every, mostly the big ones, he will do an instant reaction pod, which is where I got that from. Instant reaction podcast. So he did his instant reaction podcast to Survivor Series War Games. And here's where he gave a very good scenario. It's not going to happen, but I thought it was just very interesting. I didn't think of it, and I'm like, damn, that's good. So his idea was, what if Sami Zayn won the Royal Rumble? Now you have Sami Zayn, hey, it's supposed to be the bloodline. We're supposed to be a unit. You know, I'm part of the family. I love you guys. I would not challenge my tribal chief. I'm not going to cash in that favor, or I'm not going to cash in that award at WrestleMania. I'm not going to do that to you. Then the rest of us notice that's when The Rock shows up. The Rock and Sami, go back and forth on the microphone. And we get The Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania. But, like my scenario, Mr. Roberts agrees that Roman Reigns beats The Rock at WrestleMania. And then, at the end of WrestleMania, we're about to go off the air, or we think we're going to go off the air. Sami Zayn comes down and says, hey, I'm cashing in my opportunity. Fight me right now. Now he fights a vulnerable Roman Reigns, and Sami wins the title. I thought that was just amazing. Because I never thought about Sami, because I just see them getting ready to kick Sami out. We know Sami's going to get kicked out. It's more of, how is he going to get kicked out? How are they going to do it? Are we going to get the thumbs down like, Randy Orton got with Evolution, way back when? Or when, Michael super kicked Booker T and say, you're out of the NWO. How are they going to do that? So clearly they're using Kevin Owens, and that's what's going to get Sami out of it. At some point, Roman is going to turn on. It's going to turn on him. Or, maybe they're beating down on Kevin Owens and he thinks it's enough, and then he starts fighting the Usos and he sticks with them. I think it would be a little bit better, at least in my opinion, if it's Roman because he's like, remember he said, I've looked at his eyes and I see what I needed to see. Maybe he knows I can't trust this guy. And that's when, Bloodline's beating down Kevin, and, then Sami comes out and makes the save. Somewhere along those lines. But it's just very interesting because if you recall, I think it was I think it was 2016. I think that's when Randy won his second Royal Rumble. And if you remember, he was involved in a storyline with Bray Wyatt, joining the Wyatt family. And if you remember, similar how Jey Uso did not trust Sami, the late Luke Harper did not trust Randy, didn't want to bring him into the fold, but eventually he comes in. Randy wins the Royal Rumble. I believe I believe Bray wins the WWE Championship the next month at the Elimination Chamber. But Randy says he is not going to challenge him. He wasn't going to, turn in his opportunity to face him. And of course, at the last minute, he does. And he takes the title. So it's just reminiscent of that. But I just thought that was just very creative. And one that I didn't think, to have Sami Zayn. Now, why can't this scenario happen? Because of two people. In my opinion, because of two people. The Rock and Cody Rhodes. If you were not committed, if The Rock has not committed, or The Rock just can't do it, well, you still had the Cody Rhodes problem. Now, if The Rock couldn't make it to WrestleMania, and if Cody has not recovered in time, then you have your chance. Now, I did say, Riddle could be another option. I have said that, Seth Rollins was another option. But once I heard that scenario of having Sami win the Royal Rumble and say, I'm not going to challenge my tribal chief, no way, and then later on becomes that weasel and does it, I'm like, well, forget Seth, forget Riddle. If The Rock and Cody can't make it to WrestleMania, then that's who you got. But I am still in the belief that The Rock is going to show up, and if The Rock doesn't, it's going to be Cody. It's as simple as that. And it's funny because I was reading online, and it actually mentioned that about maybe having Roman wrestle both nights. One night he wrestles The Rock, and the next night Roman wrestles Cody Rhodes for the title. Because, again, you cannot have Cody win the Royal Rumble and then The Rock just waltz in and challenge. The Rock has to be in the Royal Rumble, and The Rock has to win the Royal Rumble to get the opportunity. What I think you need to do is have Cody win Money in the Bank, which is still up in the air if Money in the Bank is going to go back to being a WrestleMania match. Is it necessary to have it as its own event? And I know, you're trying to generate the money and all that stuff, but it's like Triple H said, in his press conference. If you're going to have a conflict, you're not going to say, well, I challenge you to Money in the Bank with 6 other guys. Same thing with Elimination Chamber. I'm not going to challenge you to Elimination Chamber and have all these other guys in there. So it doesn't really, the logic of having these events like this, to me, doesn't make sense. I know why Vince did it, but it just doesn't make sense. Because you're taking away from the specialty that those matches were. You're taking away from the specialty of Hell in the Cell when there's a pay-per-view for it every year. That's supposed to be the climax of the feud. And a Hell in a Cell was something that you didn't see very often. Your first one was Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Then you had Undertaker and Mankind. I don't remember the history after that. I know they kind of, and they did sort of prostitute it out a little bit early on, but then then they took the break. But like Elimination Chamber, that really wasn't happening that often. Before they made it a pay-per-view event, I know the first one was at a SummerSlam. I want to say SummerSlam 2003. Because 2002 is when Shawn came back and had his match with Triple H. So I think 2003 was the first Elimination Chamber match. I think that's when Kevin Nash was in. So I would agree with bringing Money in the Bank back to WrestleMania, and then that way you can have Cody win it. But Sami Zayn is destined to put his tag team back with Kevin Owens. and we've been seeing the seed sprinkled for that. Because I was saying, who's the team that's going to dethrone the Usos? And I disagree with it being Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. I think it should be an upcoming tag team who should get that honor. I'm even okay if it was the Street Profits. It's not something that the New Day should do. And I think I had said not the Street Profits before, but I can see, I'm okay with the Street Profits doing it now. The Viking Raiders, it doesn't look right for the Viking Raiders to do it. You know, the guys from Imperium, I mean, at this point, it's going to be hard because you have them as heels, and I don't see the crowd getting behind them. I think it needs to be an exciting team from NXT. That's what I think. Sammy and Kevin don't need that accolade, but for a storyline purpose, it makes sense that Kevin is trying to show you that these guys don't care about you, but you're willing to fight for them. They can give two shits about you. But Sammy's saying, I found a place that I belong. These guys are my friends. Stop interfering. There's still that bond with them. Eventually, Roman and Bloodline get Kevin in a very vulnerable situation where they're beating him down. And now, Sammy has no choice. What does he do? Does he ask them to stop? And then that confirms in Roman's head, yeah, you're not with us because you would be down with this. Why are you telling me to stop? And then that's when Roman puts him out. And, Sammy's distraught, upset. Maybe they catch Kevin again in a vulnerable situation. And then Sammy comes out and makes the save. Or maybe they attack Sammy. Maybe he asks them to stop. And maybe they beat him up. And, you kind of go back and forth with maybe Kevin saving him or, Kevin, you get the gist of where I'm going, where it's like, okay, yes, let's take the tag team titles from the Usos. And that's the road we're heading. And clearly that's going to be at SummerSlam. And I don't think anybody is losing their titles. I'm talking about this in general. I don't think until WrestleMania or after WrestleMania. Maybe one title will change hands between then and that. But I don't see Bianca Belair. Now I'm convinced Bianca Belair is going into WrestleMania as the Raw Women's Champion. Ronda Rousey is definitely going into WrestleMania as the SmackDown Women's Champion. I think if a title changes hands, it's either going to be the Intercontinental title or the United States Champion. It's going to be one of those two. I'm leaning more towards Intercontinental title. But that's just what but Sammy's been doing a great job with this. And even after a while, I kind of thought Sammy was getting a little lost. And Sammy even did an interview that, this wasn't in the plans. Just this sort of happened organically. But it's been great. You see Sammy getting everybody to break character. You see they're always covering their face, especially Jay. He's always got to cover his face and put his head down. You see Solo Sakaya sometimes has to turn his head. It's great. It's funny. He's doing a great job. And yes, I do agree with several people who say this is the best storyline in a long freaking time. And then you just think back of where Roman was before. And look where he is now. They were booing this guy out of the building. Remember the night after he beat The Undertaker? Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You suck. Go away. Go away. They just killed him. But what turned the fans to him, believe it or not, is when he came and announced that his leukemia came back. And then when he came back and it was back in remission, then, that's when the crowd was behind him. But Vince also wasn't shoving him down everybody's throat as badly as before. And I think that's what started the journey. And then it stopped again because he was a high risk with his illness, and then with COVID, if you remember, it ended up being Braun Strowman versus Goldberg, as opposed to Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. And then he came back at SummerSlam. And he came back as a heel, and that's how all that came about. But just to think where Roman was back then, everybody hated him. I mean, the Usos didn't get treated that way, but look at the change from the Usos, from the colorful, get up that they used to wear, and then how they took more of a street edge to them, and now look at them. I mean, it really is amazing. Just that change and becoming one of the best storylines ever, the best groups. And then now you throw in the unlikely character of Sami Zayn. I mean, come on. That's probably one of the few things recently that Vince had gotten right. He completely fucked up with Bray Wyatt, but he got this right. He got it right. He fucked with the bloodline, not the bloodline, with the Wyatt family. He fucked that up. Then he fucked up the Fiend. But he didn't screw this up. So that's what I wanted to share with you, just that scenario of Sami winning and then saying he's not going to challenge, and then he does end up doing it. So again, that's not going to happen, but it was a pretty damn good suggestion. And again, that came from Evan Roberts from WFAM sports radio host. I'm going to be back on Wednesday because I want to talk about Rhea Ripley and how I think Rhea Ripley needs to be the World Women's Champion. I think Rhea Ripley needs to win the Women's Royal Rumble, and she needs to challenge Bianca Belair and take that title. Even if Judgment Day disbanded, she has just become so strong. Her character is just great. She has just been phenomenal. Phenomenal. I mean, she is, right now, to me, she is at the top in one of the best storylines. I think she's been having great matches. I think the character, everything to me has been on point. I think you need to cap that off with her being women's champion. I really do. It already came out, and I'll mention this again when I do the next podcast. They've already talked about potential matches for WrestleMania, and if I remember correctly, one poster that they had up was The Rock versus Roman. As I have been saying, Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio. I don't think they had the tag team. If I can find it, I'll bring it up when I do the next one. They had Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, which that was something from the Vince era that was planned. Because I had said before they were going to have 1 year where it was Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte, which we got already, and then be Ronda Rousey versus Becky. So that was a Vince era thing. That could always change under Triple H. And then the other match was Bianca Belair versus Charlotte Flair. But I think, again, that was a speculation, but if they have that on paper somewhere, I'm sorry, it's got to be Rhea Ripley. And I'm pretty sure Charlotte's going to come back at the Royal Rumble. I don't think Charlotte should win. I don't. I'm sure Becky's going to be in it. I'm sure Bayley is going to be in it, but it shouldn't be them. It should be Rhea Ripley. And then figure out how you're going to find a contender to face Ronda Rousey. And I know before they were using the Elimination Chamber for that before, but I didn't like that because then to me you were devaluing the Royal Rumble. The point is that you win the Royal Rumble, you get to main event WrestleMania. But then it became, well, okay, well listen, if you don't win the Royal Rumble, it sucks you gotta get to the Elimination Chamber, but hey, you didn't win the Royal Rumble, you'd have to go through 30 women or 30 men, you just gotta beat 5 other people. And I disagree with that because to me you're watering it down, and you need to find a way, make that person earn that opportunity to say, okay, can I do this without, because it was just automatic. Okay, now you have to fight to get into the elimination chamber. So now if you didn't win it, oh, it's okay. You have the elimination chamber. No, I didn't like that. That wasn't something that I went for. But that's it for that. I'm going to get into more about WrestleMania, Royal Rumble when I discuss Rhea Ripley. But Rhea is just on fire. Just, you know, a lot of things are clicking on all cylinders right now, and she is definitely one of the highlights of Raw. I much rather watch Rhea Ripley than watch Bayley. I'm sorry. I find this Bayley version boring. I really do. And the way they've treated damage control, the way they've been booked to me doesn't fit their narrative of what they want to do, to me. And I just don't find Bayley interesting. I'm sorry. This version of Bayley, I just find it boring. I'd rather see Rhea Ripley. Sorry. But that is it for tonight. This is my second podcast of tonight. That is it for tonight. And like I said, I will be back on Wednesday to discuss Rhea Ripley and where I think, she should be for 2023. Rhea Ripley should be the highlight of 2023. So have a good night. Hope you enjoyed.